The Interesting Conversations with Interesting People podcast series with author Nigel Beckles.
Welcome to the podcast.
Please like the podcast and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.
Have you experienced several failed relationships or been through a divorce? How can you avoid making the same mistakes again? How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes is out now.
Hi, my name is Nigel Beckles. My book is packed with practical and common sense strategies that you can use to make better relationship choices.
Now you can discover the dangerous myths about love. If your relationship expectations are realistic, why you could be falling in love for all the wrong reasons.
How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes. It's a book that could change your life.
Available from amazon.co.uk. Kindle version also available.
Welcome back to my Interesting Conversations with Interesting People podcast series. My guest for this episode has a bachelor's degree in psychology and also a master's degree in rehabilitation counselling. He is also a prolific author, American LaQuon Johnson. Hi LaQuon, welcome back to my podcast series. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Nigel, man. It's been a long time, man. Happy to see you once again.
Yeah, indeed. Last interview we done was back in August 2021. So what have you been up to?
Wow, I mean, a lot has happened. I transitioned from New York to Virginia, where I brought my house. And my kids are 5 years older. Me and my wife, where our relationship is strong as ever and getting stronger day by day. I am actually completing my PhD at Hampton University. I'm actually writing my dissertation as we speak. I should be defending my dissertation maybe in the fall of this year.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
But you also hold a Master's of Science degree and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. Is that correct?
I do. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling.
Okay, so why were you attracted to those subjects?
The human experience, man. I think that's what it's all about. You know, I'm fascinated with why people do things, their motivations, their intentions, their desires. And I like to help them unravel and listen to that inner child that we tend to forget about, that still exists and lies within all of us. I help them, listen to that inner child and, to help them guide and assist them to, fulfilling their heart's desire, because we tend to forget who that little child is.
So what do you think makes people forget their inner child?
Age, maturity, money, status quo. We tend to listen to what people think. When you're a child, you have limited inhibition. You just go spontaneously. I think we lose that spontaneity when we get older. And then, most people don't get into the career, what you're educated in. Most people aren't in the career for which they were educated in. And I think they forget who they were when they were, let's say, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I tell people, think about who you were at that age. And they look at me kind of funny. And I say, think about really, what did you like to do daily? So for me, for instance, when I was that age, when I was in grade school, I used to get in trouble a lot for talking. Now I get paid to talk. So I tell them, were you an artist? Were you a dancer? Did you like to sing? Were you a people that like making people laugh? Let's try to tap into that inner child and, profit from it as an adult.
To be fair, there are going to be circumstances where you can't necessarily follow your dreams. External forces may take over.
Yeah, that's why I try to catch them early. I used to serve as a high school outreach representative. So I used to speak to the 11th and 12th graders specifically because I let them know you don't have to have this life thing mapped out right now. I know mom is saying, hey, what do you want to do? And she wants you to have an answer, but you don't have to have an answer. Look at what you like to do. You know the cliche. If you do what you like to, you won't work a day in your life, that type thing. And I help them to try to fulfill that dream, whatever it is. Some of the students, they say, well, mom wants me to go to college, but they want to be a mechanical engineer. That doesn't take college. That takes a technical training and is actually more lucrative than other careers. So I try to navigate them to the thing that they really, really, really like to do. Not the thing that's necessarily going to get them paid most, or the thing that mom wants them to do, or the thing that dad used to do that he didn't fulfill his dream, so he wants to live vicariously through you. I try to help them, tap into that inner child, man, and let's fulfill that destiny and that dream and that desire.
So you're also an author. When was your first book published?
My first book was published in 2020, and it's called Motivational Motives. Basically, it's helping people. It's fictional characters who are basically searching for something, and they have paths that they can take. They could either take the path to self-destruction, or they can take the path to fulfillment. And I'm asking the reader to look into what their MRI is, their motivational reasoning for their initiative. Basically, in layman's terms, why do you do what you do? Why are you married to this particular person? Why have you picked that career? Why did you go to this particular school? Why do you keep friends with this particular group? Ask the why. Give yourself the reasoning behind your initiative, and it'll help you tap into who you really are and your motivations. So that's what Motivational Motives is about. And, it came at a very pivotal time in my life because my wife actually was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at the time. And they actually gave my wife an expiration. They actually gave my wife 3 to 5 years. It's been 6 years, and my wife is alive and healthy to this day. After I wrote the book, I was at a pivotal point, because I was going through so much with my wife's health. I said, do I stop here? And, the powers that be encouraged me to keep on writing and keep on pouring into the community and society by way of my writing.
So what other books have you written?
I've also written Habitual Habitat and Urban Sermon. That's exactly what it is. We are speaking about characters that we all have habits, and they can either help or they can hinder us. So we have stories of how their habitat meaning the enclaves for which they live, whether it be their society, whether it be their homes, whether it be their schooling, how they have created habits within these habitats, and these habits have, they've either helped them profit from the habits, or they have succumbed to their own fear of failure by way of the habits, So habitual habitat is talking about, the things that we do repetitively that help us in life, or they, hinder us from becoming who we should be in life. And my third book was called Generational Ignorance. That's, I guess, self-explanatory as well. People are well versed in what generational wealth is, where we inherit real estate, or we inherit money, or we inherit, a property or anything, or a car. But we inherit trains of thought from our predecessors. We inherit sometimes negative behavior from our predecessors. We inherit things that actually can be a deterrent to our success from our predecessors. So that's what that story is based on, inheriting an ignorant train of thought and having to make a decision. Do I want to stay ignorant, or do I want to educate myself, for lack of a better word, and become who I'm supposed to be in this lifetime?
Well, that's interesting, because I'm actually working on my next book myself, and I do cover the topic of intergenerational transmission.
What was your first book?
My first book is called How to Avoid Making the Big Relationship Mistakes.
Is it on Amazon?
Oh, yes, published in 2015.
I'll be getting that as soon as possible.
So your latest book, what is that called, and what is it about?
I've been sitting on this book for 5 years. It's called The Presence of Patriarchy. It's about the pivotal part that the father specifically plays in the child's life. And when I say child, I'm speaking of the male child. And this one is very dear to me because it's actually, at the time, I didn't intend it to be, but it's dedicated to my best friend who succumbed to an overdose, a drug overdose, 5 years ago, June 12th. And I actually was writing Presence of Patriarchy when I got the call from his son stating that the medics were working on his dad, trying to revive him. I was actually writing this. Lo and behold, unfortunately, he succumbed to this, addiction, and he died. But he was a good father, though. So it made me think, what is a good father? So some may think, hey, good fathers don't do drugs. Good fathers don't drink alcohol. Good fathers don't yell at their children. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They do probably all of the above, and they still do the X, Y, and Z to take care of the children. They educate their children. They raise their children well. So he was an extremely good father that happened to have a drug addiction. Okay? So within the confines of the book, I tell stories. There's 3 stories in there, and I'll break them down. The first story is about a young man that didn't know his father at all, and he goes down a particular path. The second story is from a guy that had his father in the household, but his father wasn't given the leverage to discipline as he would have if he had the choice. And the third story was about a child that his father parents far away from him. He's not in the household, but he still has a strong effect on the child, and he goes down a particular path. So we look at the dynamics of each story and the nuance of how it affected their maturation, how it affected their decision making, how it affected their relationship with themselves as well as others. So that's what the presence of patriarchy is about in essence.
Yeah, that's interesting. But patriarchy is a social system where men traditionally hold greater authority and influence in the home, family, and in society. You have supporters who will say, well, patriarchy encourages stability, responsibility, and clear social roles. But you also have critics who say it promotes inequality, restricted opportunities, and rigid gender expectations. So how do you balance out those two different kind of perspectives?
Well, I believe both are true. Like I said with my friend, I deem him to be a father and a good father. He was a hardworking man. He paid his bills. He housed his children. He clothed his children. He cooked for his children up until the day that he died. And he instilled love into the lives of his children. He made his children men up until the day he died. On the other hand, he showed a darker side of what a man or person could succumb to. Drugs, alcohol, self-neglect, and not loving themselves. So basically, we as humans, we come in different shapes, form, or fashions. You know what I'm saying, Nigel? You know, I'm not a perfect man myself. There's some things I do extremely well, but there's some things that I am continuously working on in my life, and I'm trying to understand about myself and about others. You, my friend, you may meet me one day and say, hey, LaQuon is not such a nice guy. I thought he was a nice guy by, his writings and his diction, and that's your perspective. And I might meet, Jane Doe, and she say, LaQuon Johnson is a great guy. I think he's exceptional in his fatherhood and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone is going to have a different perspective of who LaQuon Johnson is. So actually, to piggyback off that question you asked, that's what I actually speak about in Motivational Motives. I speak about how we sit in these classrooms to be educated. And let's say we're in a classroom in an English class. Let's take that, for example. And we have two professors in our English class. Let's say on Monday and Wednesday, we have Professor A, and then on Tuesday and Thursday, we have Professor B. Now, and let's say I write a paper that both professors recommend that we write. I write this paper, and Professor A says, it's a phenomenal paper. Great. Professor B says, I think it's like a C- paper. Who's right? Neither one of them are right, Nigel. The fact that I put my effort and my blood and my sweat and my tears into this paper makes me right. So the masses are always going to have their perspective on who and what things are. But I think it lies beneath the logician. The logic is always in the eye of the logician. And I'm quoting a guy by the name of Funder that I learned about when I was in school for psychology. It's about what I deem to be reality. It's about what I deem to be an asset to my life. Everything else is just, a distraction, and if I feel like I should, put my ear to it, I will. But if I feel like it's something that's not going to help guide me and assist me to success, it's a distraction, and I'll ignore it. It's about perspective. Both perspectives are right in the question you asked.
Well, we live in a subjective world, don't we?
Right. So, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, you have opinions, and everyone's got opinions, and then you've got informed opinions. As that saying goes, facts don't care about your feelings. So how do you hope your latest book will help other people? Well,
that's a very good question. I think now all men or children are not going to have their fathers in the household. That's a fact. We know that all children, for whatever reason, whether it be because of what my friends succumb to, whether it be incarceration, whether it be they're just deadbeat dads, they're not going to have their father in their household. What do? Do they just give up and say, well, men aren't anything, and it doesn't matter? No, I think that it's the duty of the young adult to seek out a role model that plays a prominent role in their life, and it's the duty of us as role models to accept their yearn and desire to be heard and to be helped. You know what I'm saying? I think that I want to reach people that have felt the void in their life of not having a father figure or a role model, because I don't see your father figure as just being the guy that gave birth to you. I don't see it. Your father figure could be your teacher, your doctor, your coach, your uncle, your next door neighbor. Your father figure doesn't have to be the guy that shares your DNA. He's the guy that's going to be the shoulder that you can cry on. He's the guy that's going to give you the high five when you do well. He's the guy that's going to hold you accountable. So I think it's the duty of the person. So the people I want to reach is the people that, one, want to be held accountable and feel like that, we as patriarchs, we should be doing more for the younger generation. We should be listening. We should be telling them when they're doing right. We should be telling them when they're doing wrong. We should be vulnerable and tell them where we went wrong in life, because they might look at us like we have it all together. Yeah, you got your fancy house, you have your nice car, you have some money in the bank, but they don't know the struggle that I went through to obtain these things. They don't know how I fell on my face 120 times before, during, and after I have obtained these things. So I want to reach the people that felt the void and that acknowledge that there is a void in the households and the societies that we live in.
It sounds to me that you're talking about a need for mentors.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm speaking about, Nigel.
I would agree with that. I mean, at the moment, as you know, in the States, there's been a lot of coverage about teen takeovers, these youngsters kind of congregating and causing problems. And some of the commentary has been, well, they're planning to or want to punish the parents. I suppose the other opinion would be they feel that because of a lack of men in the household, there's no structure. So basically the teenagers are doing what they like.
Interesting point. Okay, a week ago, after the Presence of Patriarchy had been published and everything, I thought about the role that the mothers actually played in this Presence of Patriarchy. And it kind of dawned on me that the mothers of these men that I speak about in the book, they had a common bond. The common bond was that they didn't or tried to bridge the gap between the son and the father for whatever reason. For whatever their motivation was, they were not a proponent of bridging this gap between the father and son. The first woman, I think she did it out of sheer embarrassment because she actually was dealing with a married man and fathered a child. The second woman, she had a different parenting style as her husband. And the third woman, she was just angry and upset because her child's father didn't want to have anything to do with her. So they had this, they had personal motivations and encouragement to put a crack in the cement that could have, stabilized the foundation towards the father and the son. But they neglected to do so. So that's an interesting point with these children that are being chaotic. And they're saying it's because of the father not being in the household. And in that circumstance, yes, the mother has to step up. The mother might have to initially find this role model. I'm not saying it has to be a love interest, but she has to find this role model somewhere for her child. If she feels like she cannot do it herself, she has to reach out for help. She has to be vulnerable. If she loves her child, she will go to any extent to save her child.
In those circumstances, I would guess, again, she would try and access a mentor.
Right. Some don't, though. Women that are very strong-minded, they say, you know what? I don't need a man to help me with this. I got this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's true to an extent. I mean, I've been following the Carmelo Anthony case, and obviously he comes from a two-parent household. Anthony, he was a top student at school, great grades, etc., etc.
It's interesting that you say that, Nigel, because to go back to my best friend that I grew up with, we were friends for, 35, 40 years. And we grew up in the same apartment complex. They call them projects. And in this project complex, there are 16 stories and there are 8 apartments on each floor. That's a lot of people, isn't it? And we came up in a very extremely impoverished environment. Now, I'm an only child, okay? My best friend, comes from a family of 9. Now, in this building, everyone had at least 1, 2, or 3 siblings. Everyone had multiple siblings. So one day, maybe about 2 years before he died, we were sitting at his kitchen table and we was having a discussion about the old neighborhood. And we started speaking and we came to the realization that me and him were the only people in the building that had their father in the household every day. And we really sat for about 15 minutes and said, no, it had to be somebody else. So we really thought about it, and not either one of us couldn't come up with another guy that had, or female, that had their father in the household on a daily basis. So this begs the question, was this the connection that we had? Was it that? Was this the reason why we came up as respectable men? Is it the reason why we are, quote unquote, good fathers? Because of our father's influence? Because none of our friends had, and many of these guys we grew up with have histories of incarceration, have histories of substance abuse, probably aren't good fathers, probably have fathered many children by many women. They aren't us, me and my friend.
So, LaQuon, how can people contact you?
They can contact me on Facebook at LaQuon Johnson. I serve as a crisis worker as well. I help people that are going to commit suicide. I help people with histories of incarceration and substance abuse. I help them get into, return to baseline functioning. I can actually throw my number out there. This is what I do for a living. It's my calling. I'm at 646-246-7149. So if someone wants to contact me directly, they can contact me at 646-246-7149.
LaQuon, in the United States, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Please join me, author Nigel Beckles, for interesting conversations with interesting people, featuring interviews with award-winning authors, relationship and life coaches, therapists, and a wide variety of people with intriguing stories to share. Interesting conversations with interesting people.
Please follow author Nigel Beckles' podcasts on Amazon Audible, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms. Thanks.